Hello, and welcome back to Anatomy at QK College, and welcome to my kitchen. So we have started chapter 10 in our textbook where we're talking about the actions, insertions, and origins of muscles. And in many of our descriptions of actions, we're going to be using anatomical terms to describe the motion of the body. And I thought it might be helpful to create a small video to kind of go over the different definitions of the terms that you will see in chapter 10. My cat may come along, you may see him today as we're going through, but hey, he can just practice with us. All right, so let's get started. All right, so see. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at the different motions or the different anatomical terms that describe the motions of the body. And we're going to kind of divide it into two major sections. Two major sections. Motions that are rotational, hey Tesla, and motions that are not rotational. So let's kind of talk about these terms together. Let's start out with motions that are not rotational. Okay, so the first three terms that I would like to talk about as a group is flexion, extension, and hyperextension. And these three terms are going to describe decreasing or increasing the angle of a joint in the anterior versus posterior directions. Just so you know, we're going to start all of our motions essentially in anatomical position. So why don't we do a quick review of that? Anatomical position is going to be where your legs are close together, your hands or arms are at your sides, the palms are facing forward, and your face is facing forward. Hey, Tesla. And what we're going to do is we're going to start in this position, but to describe flexion, extension, and hyperextension, I'm going to turn the anatomical position on the side over here. So flexion is any type of motion that decreases the angle of a joint in either the anterior or posterior direction. So we can see here when I bend my arms, the angle between the humerus and the ulna and radius has significantly decreased. So this type of action. I find it easiest to remember flexion of any motion really that helps get you into the fetal position. So what I'm going to do here is showing flexion. So a lot of my angles of my joints are very small and compressed. And so this would be most of my joints being flexed. To kind of isolate that a little bit, some of the flexions of the legs would be like so. Here I'm flexing my knee. To flex the hip would be bringing the angle outwards. So my knee and my hip are flexed in this position. For the arm or the elbow, it will be like this or like this. You can also flex the hands. So I'm going to come a little bit closer. So you can see from this side, I am in anatomical position. If you bring your fingers into a fist, you're actually flexing your fingers. And if you bring your wrist forward like so, you're flexing your wrist. So flexing the fingers, flexing the wrist. Kind of the other term that is associated with flexion is extension. It's kind of its opposite. And what extension is going to do is that it's going to increase the angle of the joint in the anterior versus posterior direction. So if I go back down into fetal position where most of my angles are decreased and my joints are flexed, I can show you the extension. So over here, I am flexing my joints. And when I come up back to anatomical position, I'm going to increase the angle of my joints in the anterior and posterior direction and return my body back to anatomical position. So flexion, extension. You can also flex or extend the fingers and the wrist. If your fingers are in a fist and you bring your fingers out, you're extending it. If your wrist is flexed and you bring it back to anatomical position, it's extension. The last term in this kind of trio is going to be hyperextension. Hyperextension is anything that brings the body past anatomical position. So these actions are hyperextension. So just to review the three: flexion, extension, hyperextension. If we're talking about the ankle has specific terms to describe flexion, and both directions in which we move the ankle would be flexion. So let me kind of illustrate that. I'm going to just show my ankle a little bit better. So if you point your toe, what you're going to have is you're going to have plantar flexion. Remember, like planting my foot into the ground. So that's plantar flexion. If you bring your ankle up, and so you're kind of decreasing the ankle between your joints, that's going to be dorsiflexion. So plantar flexion and dorsiflexion. Plantar and dorsi. So those are going to be the terms that have to do with moving the ankle of the joints in the anterior versus posterior directions. Another set of terms that we're going to see is abduction and adduction. Abduction and adduction are going to change the angle of the joints in the medial versus lateral direction. I want to go over some etymology so it can be easier to keep track of which term is which. Duction or duct in Latin means to move or to carry. So you're carrying your arms and legs. And ab with a B is going to be from. So abduction means to carry from the body or carry away. Ad with a D, it means to in Latin. So adduction is the process of carrying your limbs to the body. And as I said, these are going to move in the medial versus lateral direction. So if we bring our arms out, arms and legs out, this is going to be abduction with a B. And bringing our arms and legs in is adduction with a D. Abduction, adduction. We can also do abduction and adduction with our hands. So if I have my fingers over here, if I splay my fingers out, I'm abducting my fingers. If I bring my fingers in, I'm adducting them. Abduction, adduction. Okay. Okay. The last kind of motion in our kind of list of non-rotational motions, this one will seem counterintuitive, but I promise you the bone is actually not rotating in place, is circumduction. Circumduction, duct meaning to carry, and circ meaning circle. It's going to carry the limb in a circle. The shoulder joint and the hip joint are capable of doing this because they are a ball and socket joint and they have a wide range of motion. So this would be circumduction. So you can see I'm drawing a circle with my arm. You can bring it the other way as well, circumduction. The hip is capable of doing circumduction as well. So circumduction can go the other way too. Yes, no, maybe so. So those two actions are circumduction. The next set of moves are going to be rotational, where the bone is actually going to turn in the joint. And there's going to be kind of two types of motion, medial rotation and lateral rotation. Medial rotation is going to rotate the bone towards the midline. So in this situation, the shoulder is what is moving or having the rotation occur, and the humerus is turning. And here, if we move this way, the humerus is going to rotate towards the midline. Medial rotation. If we move our arms away from the midline and move it laterally, this action is lateral rotation. We can do the same thing with the hip joint. So again, revealing my ankles to see the motion a little bit better. If I bring my toes in, like so, this is going to be medial rotation. And again, this rotation is occurring at the hip, not at the knee or the ankle. It's coming from the hip. And then over here, we're going to have lateral rotation, like a ballerina. Medial rotation, lateral rotation. A few more features that I would like you to be aware of. So some specialized motions. The ankles do have another kind of pair of motions that I can do. If we bring the sole of our foot in or medially, like so, this is called inversion. And if we bring our ankles out laterally, so like you're rolling your ankle, that would be eversion. Inversion with an I, eversion with an E. For the shoulders, we can do some motions, and these motions can also be done with the jaw. We have protraction, where we're bringing the shoulders forward. We can also bring the jaw forward and protract it. And we can bring the shoulders back or the jaw back. That is going to be retraction. So protraction and retraction. We can also move the shoulders up and down and the jaw up and down, like in the superior versus inferior direction. If we bring it up, we're elevating the shoulder or we're elevating the jaw. When we close it, elevate. And when we bring our shoulders down, down, or we open our jaw, we're depressing our shoulders or our jaw. There are some motions that we can see for the head and the body. There is what is known as lateral flexion. To laterally flex the head, we can bring it side to side. Or to laterally flex the vertebral column, we can bring it side to side. A little creepy, but that's a thing. Let's see, did I go through all of them? One more thing for the hand, and I think we'll be set. So because we have opposable thumbs, our thumbs can do a special motion. So if we bring our thumb over and cross over to touch our other fingers, this action is called opposition. And when we bring our thumb back into anatomical position, it's repositioning. Opposition and reposition. So that should cover most everything. If I missed something or if you're curious, don't be shy to ask. Hopefully this was helpful, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye from my kitchen. See you, and Tesla says bye-bye too. Bye-byes.